I think that the Trump administration, in their sort of like haste to coax Democrats to into impeachment, have given more public evidence that the Trump administration should be impeached. I mean, don't you think, like Mnuchin with this whole thing with the taxes is just, to me, it's exhibit, A or B that there's a cover up.
Well, I mean, look at what they're doing. They have not turned over one document. I mean, I think that's still true. I heard it the other day, and I assume that they haven't turned over anything yet. One document that's been requested by the Congress. They're basically challenging the very idea that our separation of powers. They're challenging the fundamental aspect. I mean, if you want a constitutional crisis, this is what we're coming to. They're saying you, the Congress, have no right to question anything we do. You just don't. You go do your little legislation, and maybe I'll sign it and maybe I won't. But that's it. That's your job. None of the rest of this stuff is your job. It's not true. And in fact, in the Constitution, it pretty much says that if you want to find a superior branch of the government, it's the Congress, not the president, not the courts. I mean, they are the ones who are sort of the direct line to the people. And it was designed for them to have these powers, to kind of be the overseers. They're the ones who have the impeachment powers of both the courts and the president. So, I mean, this is a direct challenge to that. And you can look to people like Bill Barr. I mean, I think he's the main driver of their response. And there are others in the White House as well who are doing this, and a bunch of legal thinkers, far-right extremist types, who see the presidency as an imperial presidency, and they have for many, many years, and they've been working toward this, and they finally found a president who was willing to challenge all of it, who would just, without question, do whatever sort of made him feel good in the moment, and they could sort of guide him through this. So this is a very serious thing. This, Mnuchin coming up there and just defying the law, just basically, and with the lamest excuses you can find to doing it, and basically taking it into the courts, where they also got, that was another thing I think that may have moved Pelosi off the dime a little bit. The first court cases that are going through, one last week, pretty much indicated, I mean, they looked at the White House's legal, rationale, and kind of shook his head. The judge did, and went, no, this makes no sense. I don't know what you're talking about here. Just no, go back to square one, and basically said, no, this isn't going to fly. So there's a little bit of hope, I think, on the Democrats' part that maybe the courts are going to step up. And help them, sort of go through this process, which is clearly constitutional. But there's all these things. I mean, these, you see people like Mnuchin getting up there and just making the most, completely ridiculous arguments and being defiant, right? Looking them in the face and saying, how dare you? Ben Carson doing the same thing. He clearly did not know what he was talking about, and he was just being, basically rude. And, looking at these people going, I'm reclaiming my time, it's completely a ridiculous thing. I mean, this is not how cabinet members behave with Congress. This is not how it works. It's never been how it works. I mean, it's beyond just a norm breaking. This is now challenging the very fundamental nature of how our governmental structure is supposed to work. There is a complete disrespect for the Congress. And I think that is exactly one of the main reasons why they have moved, why the leadership in the Congress seems to be moving. Because if they don't say anything about this, Sam, if they don't move on this will be something that will have fundamentally changed. You can't just turn the country back, and say, oh, well, that never happened. Let's pretend that never happened. It will have happened. Presidents in the future will have that power. Congress is going to be permanently diminished. It's their job to protect that. That is the fundamental nature of their oversight of Article 1 of the Constitution. They have to do it. And so I think that's another part of it. I mean, when you say that the Trump administration may have overplayed their hand, I think that's absolutely the case. I mean, they're pushing it on a level that just isn't smart. It just is kind of like, wait a minute, you could play this game for months. You could drag this out and cajole Pelosi and Schumer. It's clear that there was a dance that was available to them to go back and forth on, and each side would, sort of keep its base happy in one way or another, and they could keep doing it. They're not doing it. They're pushing it as hard as they can. Pelosi's kind of standing there going, well, okay.
Right. And I will say this, that you make the sort of I don't know if I would call it the ethical argument, but the constitutional argument, the necessity, and I guess the ethical moral argument in terms of holding power to account and but maintaining our constitutional. Like you say, this is not norms. This is constitutional. But I will also add, just lastly, and we got to take a break, that from a political standpoint, you also got to do it because if Donald Trump is pushing the Congress around like this, it makes the Congress look weak, and nobody's going to go out there and vote for weakness. Nobody's going to do it. And so there's both a political expediency, I think, to it, or at least necessity to salvage, like I say, rock in a hard place, but there's also this moral and constitutional argument, which I think helps you in that rock and a hard place. But we got to take a break. Digby, if you'll join me in the third hour, we've got a lot of other stories to talk about that don't have to do directly with this. And we will talk about them when we get back in the third hour. In the meantime, we'll be back with Ring of Fire in just a moment.